Welcome to everyone. My name is Daniel Sidoli. I'm a program coordinator at PrivacyRules. And for today's PrivacyEspresso, we're joined by Hugh Mansfield, who is a principal at McMillan Vantage, our Canadian partner for crisis communication. Hugh, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Daniel. My name is Hugh Mansfield. I have been working in crisis communications for the better part of 27 years. I specialize in data breaches and data security, as well as privacy impact assessments for companies, just to see where they're at. So yeah, I've been building crisis communication strategies for many companies for many years, and both in Canada and the United States.
Thank you very much. To give a bit more of context to the audience, McMillan Vantage is part of a program led by PrivacyRules, which aims to pair crisis communication knowledge to privacy legal knowledge and also technical cybersecurity knowledge. Then, without further ado, I will start here with the first question, which is, in your opinion, why PR and communication are integral aspects of nowadays businesses?
Well, I think that, what has basically happened over the last 10 years is communications has changed dramatically. And, we're no longer doing one-to-many strategies. We're doing one-to-one strategies because basically there are so many different channels and so many different ways, forums, news sites, social media channels, that people are getting their information, that we really have to start focusing on where the customer or where the client base is. So, in essence, what's happened is, marketing and communications has become a science, which is really interesting because, we can measure everything now in real time. We're no longer waiting till the end of the month to see if that campaign worked or not. We're doing it all in real time because we can actually see what is taking place. And, if you combine that with the fact that the changing demographics also have played a huge role in how businesses need to connect with their customers, simply because if you take the Gen Zs, for example, is a great example of demographic that has grown up entirely on the internet, versus the boomers who are sort of getting used to it, but not the way the younger generation is. So there's new methods of consumption and there's new ways of getting information. But the downside to all of this is, of course, bad news spreads much faster as well. So something that goes wrong with a company, you can be taken down in 15 minutes if you don't really handle that situation well. So the most common form of bad news is cybersecurity. There was a Deloitte study done in 2018 that found that 80% of organizations worldwide had dealt with a crisis in the past 2 years, and 46% of those companies said it was cyber related. So, and furthermore, many of them expected it to happen again. So for me, that was a real eye opener into why we as a firm are spending more time in cybersecurity and crisis communications as it relates to cybersecurity, because it's happening everywhere. In Canada alone, the legislation by the Privacy Commissioner, who is the overlord for our federal regulated privacy, they dictated starting in the fall of 2018 that you were mandated that you had to report a cyber breach within 48 hours. And prior to that, it was, again, the Wild West. They might get 20 reports a year. In the first year, they had close to 400 reported incidences because it was federally mandated. It was a law. You had to report. So we went from next to nothing to, oh my gosh, it's happening more intensely than we ever imagined. So for those reasons, the issue of cybersecurity and data breaches has reached new levels of consideration. And because of that, we're seeing the numbers rise annually. It's not something that's slowing down. It's something that's actually picking up.
Thank you for the extensive answer. And I think we mostly covered also the topic of my second question, which was how does communication support companies in privacy related matters? I don't know if you would like to address just few more points on this.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's so much that goes on with a communication strategy when privacy is involved, especially in a situation where there's a breach. Okay. I think just for purposes of sort of trying to almost give you a laundry list of things that I think are super important. Some of the questions that you would need to know as a communication professional is there a data privacy officer? Is there a CSO, a chief security officer? officer? Who has access to the data organizationally wide? What kind of authentications are they using? Are the controls extended to their suppliers? When was the last privacy impact assessment completed? I mean, it goes on and on and on in terms of all the things that you would want to know that give you the sense that the company has the privacy contained, or at least the security of it contained. Beyond that, you would want to obviously get into a situation where hopefully the company has a plan. If it doesn't have a plan, it's something that I always highly advise, because you can pay to have a great plan put in place that will save you infinite amount of time and money when a crisis does hit, because everybody knows what's taking place and you've done the mock drills to sort of move it forward. But simple things like when there is a breach, really understanding what it is, was it a brute force cyber attack? Is ransomware involved? Was it human error? Have the police been contacted? Have the regulators been informed? Like all the things that professional communications expert will know what to do and how to build these laundry lists so that you're set up to manage the situation. Because the first 48 hours are crucial, in any breach, and how to build holding statements that sort of handle the immediate influx of media if it's something really large. And I've worked on some large ones. Do you need a call center, for instance, set up to take inbound calls? Quite often the case if it's, hundreds of thousands of customers that have been impacted. How do you manage your social media channels? How do you make sure that you're pulling down all your paid advertising on social media during a crisis so that you're not putting up an ad that might be, conflicting with the issue, right? And that's happened many times where people don't do that. Can you create an FAQ page on your website because your volumes are so high you need to redirect people to somewhere where they can get the information that they desperately need? And then who are your key audiences? Well, your key audiences are your employees and board members, your investors, and your customers. And so what and how are you communicating to those groups? So, I could go in, we could probably do a whole hour on this, but I'm just saying there's a long list of things that you would want to address when a breach happens. But my strongest advice is have a plan in advance to manage effectively through a crisis, and you'll be well on your way and well ahead of 95% of the companies that don't have one.
Great. I believe this very much covers also a last question, which would have been, please provide 3 concrete services, or mention 3 concrete services that are relevant for companies managing a lot of data. Here are 2 notes. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say have a plan, do a stakeholder assessment, have an accurate breach assessment or incident case assessment, and an active crisis management if it's actually a crisis. Could this summarize?
I think that's more or less, prepare, right? Like get a plan, prepare for the inevitable, right? Because it's going to happen. I'm always amazed at how many companies have not prepared, but I'm also really happy with the companies that do, because they take the initiative and they understand that this is something that you need to have. And by building a plan, part of a plan is anticipating what possible scenarios could take place within your company. And so you're practicing those scenarios. You're having mock trials, right? So that your crisis communication team, or the CCT as I like to call it, they know how to handle these types of situations when they hit. And you're refreshing, you're updating every year, you're sitting down as a group. Sometimes employees leave, and so somebody new is on the team. So it's really important to keep all of that information up to date. But, having a partner agency that knows how to build these programs puts you well on your way to sort of being the best prepared for what I consider to be the inevitable, and goes a long way. And don't forget, when this is all over, when the crisis ends, what do you do after that, right? Well, then there's the recovery, right? And the recovery is really important to, how are you establishing and restoring faith back in your brand, and the steps that you're taking to sort of show that you're a completely transparent organization and that your customer care is number one, and then just the prevention steps that you're taking so that this never happens again, and those types of initiatives. But, and again, depending on the level of crisis will dictate how much that is involved, but it's always a factor, and it's an important one too, to do an analysis of what took place and how you performed against it.
Very complex cases, and therefore quite complex answer. I think it was very clear, and I would like to thank you. Thank all the audience for being with us and following us. We will see you in the next Privacy Espresso. So thank you again, Hugh, and
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Pleasure being here.